Welcome, my name is Isabella Brusati and I am the founder of Isabella Brusati Consulting. I engage people in rapid, successful and profitable corporate change initiatives. In this video we'll be talking about one of the most important aspects of change management, and it is the success trap. It is not unusual for executives of very successful companies to rest on their laurels. You got a product that is doing fantastically well, it's really driving sales, the company is at the top of the world, and unfortunately the executives are not taking into consideration some elements that actually point to the fact that the competitors are catching up. Or for example, they are not monitoring some triggers that may actually have a detrimental impact on their profitability, like for example some changes in legislation. So the success trap actually explains the reason why some companies tend to go from the top of the world down to bottom. How does it work? Well, I'm going to show you a graph and explain how the success trap works. As we can see, when we launch a product, there is an S shape. So we go from basically the introduction, where actually the sales are of course quite low, and actually tends to grow with the investment. So we put more money, the product starts to be a little bit more known, and basically the sales start to take off. And basically it goes from introduction to growth. We then get to a level of maturity, and that's actually where the product basically reached the peak. And after this peak, the sales will start to decrease. The main problem that most companies are facing nowadays is that they basically get stuck in the growth phase. Basically, they are all excited by the fact that things are doing fantastically well, and they don't get ready for the next step. So basically they wait for the product to reach its maturity and for the sales to decline before doing something. Well, actually that's far too late. In order to manage change proactively, companies have to act actually far earlier, when the product and the sales are still growing, so well before it reaches its maturity. And this is why, because basically the life cycle of products nowadays has shortened significantly, and the change is faster than ever before. One of the examples that I like to use to illustrate the success trap is the example of RIM, basically Research in Motion. They are the manufacturer of the BlackBerry. The BlackBerry was launched in the market at the end of the 90s, so these kind of devices were brand new. I mean, people didn't even know what they were. So of course it took quite some time for it to catch up in terms of sales in the market. It actually reached the peak in 2008 when President Barack Obama decided to adopt this device for its own presidential campaign. We're talking about the first one, and literally sales absolutely boomed. However, what happened is that RIM rested on its laurels. So basically they were so entrenched in this success that they didn't notice that the competitors were catching up. On one side we had Apple with the iPhone, and on the other side we had Microsoft with the Android, and now we got Samsung and lots of others. And actually these companies created products that were highly covetable, and actually RIM went from 44% of the smartphones market in 2009 to literally less than half that figure in 2011. Things changed dramatically just over 12 months, and it's like, how did it happen? Well, what RIM did not consider was a fundamental change in the landscape of smartphones, and there was what is called the consumerization of IT. Before this phenomenon, what happened was that technology in terms of smartphone was very expensive. So it was for companies that were adopting this kind of tools, and actually they were giving the various smartphones, so BlackBerry and so on, to their workforce, and then the workforce basically was using it, sometimes also in private life. However, something major happened between 2008 and 2009, and actually what happened is that the competitors of RIM put on the market tools that were much more competitive in terms of price than the BlackBerry, and most of all, something that actually switched the cycle. So whilst before it was companies that were adopting technology and then it went down to basically normal consumers, now it was exactly the opposite, because basically an iPhone was about £300. So people actually started to buy the iPhone, started to buy the Android, and to use it for their personal use. And basically, instead of going from company to individual, it went just to individual directly and not company anymore. So basically this step has been completely erased. And basically people were using the smartphones to be in contact with their friends, with the world 24/7. So then we had Twitter, we had Facebook, we had LinkedIn. So what RIM didn't take into consideration is this change trigger that actually changed the landscape of smartphone significantly and completely. Nowadays things happen very quickly. So companies don't have the luxury to wait months and months or years and years before things are changing. Things literally change in months. The iPhone 4 is now basically old. We've got the iPhone 5 and very soon we will have something different. Companies need to be aware of the success trap and need to be aware of what to do in order to overcome this issue. This is not a trivial issue, because if companies do not take this into consideration, the risk is to disappear completely. RIM at the moment is still in big troubles. They are trying actually to recuperate, but whilst before they were well ahead of the curve, now they are well beyond. Why? Because they did not take into consideration the fact that there are some triggers that basically cause these massive changes in the market, and that can literally sink, and I'm literally saying sink, an organization. RIM is not the only one. For example, we had Nokia that had the same problem, and now they are trying to catch up. The same thing happened to Yahoo. So when dealing with change management, the success trap is an important element that has to be taken into consideration. There is no room for error, and most of all nowadays, dealing with change has to be proactive and not reactive. Thank you so much for watching.